Hello and welcome to The Olive Tree with me, Julia Fisher. Whilst in Israel recently recording interviews for this programme, I visited Bethlehem, which is in the West Bank, to meet a Christian from Gaza called Elias. Gaza is frequently in the news and is one of the most controversial places on earth. The majority of people who live there are Muslims, but there are some Christians, although their numbers are fast diminishing. This interview is one man's story of life in Gaza, finding faith there before leaving.
My name is Elias, and I was Christian, but without deep faith. I was Christian by name, you can say it.
It's more of a cultural thing. You were born into a Christian family.
Yes, I born in a Christian family, and I was, Christian, but I wasn't know about my Christianity. Only the basics only, and I wasn't able to share or to speak or to even discuss about my faith. I remember in one of the times, I was the only student in my school the only Christian student in my school, and I remember my teacher who was teaching me Islamic religion. He asked me to stand in front of my class. We was around 45 students in my class. And he asked me, "Are you Christian?" I said to him, "Yes." And I was in the 8th grade. And he said, "You are Christian, so can you share us about your faith?" And I remember myself, I stand in front of them, and I was very weak. I wasn't able to share anything. I was feeling that I don't know what can I share them. He asked me again, is there is any prayer you pray? You can tell us. I remember I spoke to them, or I shared them, Our Father in Heaven, but I did it as fast as I can. I don't know if they even recognize the meaning of behind this. And I was shy, and I was, empty spiritually. And when I said this, the students become, they laughed. And they start, to tell me, "This is all what you know about your religion." I said to them, "Yes." I wasn't able to share, and I wasn't know what to share, and so the teacher told me, finished, you can sit. And since that time, I start to suspicious in my faith. I start to think that my faith as a Christian, it's not the real faith. And this led me to many questions in my head. But, I was in an age that I cannot take a decision in my life. I just was having this atmosphere or this thinking in my head, what I am believe in, it's very weak. Till I went to the university. In the university, when the students, they know that I am a Christian, they start to come with a lot of questions,
Was this a university in Gaza?
Yes, it's a university there. And I was receiving questions every day. And as you can imagine, I was empty. I wasn't have any answers. And then I start to think serious about leaving my faith. But before that, I remember I sat in one of the nights in my bed, and I spoke to God. I told him, "I believe in you that you are there. I believe that there is God and you are there, but I don't know the way to you. Is it through Christ or it's through Islam?" And I remember in that night, I put in front of me 3 months. I told God, "I will give you 3 months to lead me about the right faith that I need to follow. Is it Christianity or Islam? And I was hating nights in that 3 months, because every day I go to my bed, it become like, something serious in my mind. I was taking at least 1.5 hours every day thinking and fighting in my thoughts, about this subject. And I was, surprised after like around 2 months, surprised that one of the Christian youth in my city, he started to communicate with me. And for me, I don't know him before, and he's like strange, for me. But he's a Christian. He living in my city. So he started to call me. He started to to ask about myself, and he asked a lot of questions. So I told him, look, I don't know you before. You don't know me. Why you are trying to be close to me? And his answer was shocked me. He told me, God puts you in my heart. So as soon as he said this, I was surprised, how could? But I was knowing that every day I am praying that God lead me to where I will be and which faith I need to. So I told him, are you good Christian? He said to me, I'm trying. So I told him, so I have a lot of questions. And we start to communicate. I start to give him all the questions that I was thinking that no answers, these questions that have no answers. But I was surprised again when he was giving me answers from the Bible about my questions and about the questions that the students in my university, they asking me. So I become happy. I start to ask him the questions. He give me the answers. I go the next day to the university. I give the answers. The students give me another questions I don't know. So I go to him again and I ask him, and he give me answers. And it was like this. And in the end, I told myself, I cannot stay like this. I need to know, not to ask. So when I told him this young man, in that time, he told me, what about if we do a Bible study? I told him, it's a good idea. Let us do it. So we start to meet 2 days a week. I was reading from the Bible and having my questions, and receiving questions from my friends and people from my university. And we start to discuss these things and open, it was my best time, to be honest, in that time. So, and then, from this meeting, I start, to think that, yes, it's my faith, it's the Christ, the Christianity is, that I found myself there. And I remember in the end, he invited me to one of the youth conferences, Christian youth conference in my city. And the speaker was from outside our country. So I went, and in that meeting, I give my life to Jesus. In that meeting, God spoke to me directly, now you are knowing who's the way and who's the truth. And since that time till today, I dedicate myself, to be a good Christian and to do as much as I can to be a good servant for him in my country. And this is, I start from that day to, to study, not only to read, and it's to study about him, about Jesus. And then I studied in one of the Christian colleges, in my country. And then I start a children ministry and youth ministry together. My goal was, I don't want children and youth to be empty spiritually and they are Christians. So I don't want people to be the same as how I was. So I want to do my best to give them what I learned late. And till today, I am doing the same with passion. and with hope that God will use every time the new generation and use me with them too, and others.
You no longer live in Gaza, but can you give our listeners a little insight into what life is like there at the moment, especially for any Christians who are still living there?
You know, sometimes living in a place that you are minority, when you are, for example, in Gaza, there's around 800 Christians nowadays among around 2 million Muslims. So sometimes, as a human, you find that the mentality of minority is, making your reaction, different. I believe, that it's not easy, but in the same time, who have called to be there and, to be a good witness, it will be blessing. And, our people here, they are, good. They treat Christians in a good way, to be honest. Yes, there is some people, they, you cannot, control them, but you will find some people, they have hate or they reject, the others. But in general, in our country, and this is something I want to thank God for it, there is respect and there is acceptance to the Christians in our country, and this is something I'm proud of. Even if there is, people, they don't like Christians, or in general they don't like the other. It's not only the Christians.
You've been listening to Elias, and we'll hear more from him about life in Gaza on next week's programme. The Olive Tree Reconciliation Fund is a Christian charity based in the UK that supports the needs of both Jewish believers and Arab or Palestinian Christians living in Israel and the wider Middle East. If you'd like to know more about our work through our bi-monthly newsletter, including news about our upcoming tours, please either visit our website www.olivetreefund.org or write to me, Julia Fisher, OTRF, PO Box 402, Billingshurst, RH14 4BQ in the UK. Meanwhile, join me at the same time next week for another story from the Olive Tree. Until then, goodbye.